Hello, and welcome back to another jam-packed episode of the Hammercast. I'm your host, Alex, the Hebrew Hammer Salkin, and on today's episode, I'm going to be talking about why I'm not the least bit worried about AI coaching. And I wanted to make this episode because I wrote this as an email to my daily email list. And I thought, you know what, this would be a good topic for the podcast as well. And incidentally, if you want to get on my daily email list where I send out my best tips, tactics, techniques, and strategies for how to get real world strong, just go to 9minutechallenge.com. And from there, you can also get a free program, my now world famous 9minutechallenge.com. I don't know why I said .com. Doesn't need. It's just called the 9 Minute Challenge. It just happens to be 9minutechallenge.com. So if you give me your name and email address, I will send you the free program, and then you will also end up on my email list, getting all my best material. All right. Now, this is what I wrote, and I'm also going to include some of my own extra commentary. But there's a quote that I've heard, and as far as I know, it's unknown, but I think it summarizes things pretty well. If a machine cannot commit seppuku, it cannot write poetry. And seppuku is it's a little bit morbid. It's the Japanese ritual suicide that I guess the shoguns and other people like that would commit if they failed. I'm not an expert on Japanese ritual suicide. However, the point here is that if a machine cannot feel emotional pain and it cannot feel suffering and difficulties, it cannot make anything beautiful out of it, like poetry. And periodically I get asked, are you worried that one day AI will be able to write programs so good that you won't be needed anymore? And the short answer is no. And then people will say, oh, but AI is getting so much better all the time. What I respond to that is, so what? I'm not a Luddite who completely shuns technology, and I find AI useful for things like research, for instance, since it can compile a lot of sources very quickly, including non-traditional ones like obscure posts on forums and what have you. And incidentally, I do think that that's valuable because periodically, even now, you have people like, let's say, Pavel Tsatsouline, the Kettlebell King, posting on forums. In the 90s and early 2000s, like in the copywriting world, for instance, you had like the best of the best copywriters in the world commenting on forums. Now, whether or not they've been archived, I have no idea. But the point is, there's a lot of information that is easier to access thanks to AI because a lot of these large language models like ChatGPT and Gemini and what have you have scoured the entire internet and can very effectively put together a lot of information. And that's one of the things I like about it is in addition to finding the actual sources, they can also summarize lots of this information to make navigating it all much easier and faster. But despite its sophistication, writing a strength program is a lot more than just creating some soulless algorithm of increasing numbers over a period of time. If that was all you needed, you wouldn't even need a calculator. You could use an abacus and get the exact same result. So apart from taking into account students' goals, a large part of what makes an effective program also includes taking into account stuff like a student's athletic and weight training history, their injury history, time they can commit to working out, equipment availability, tweaks, and other physical idiosyncrasies that don't show up on any medical radar but interfere with their performance nonetheless and need to be addressed. Movement and strength imbalances that can alter technique and performance. Sudden life happens type moments that require a change in one or more training sessions to stay on track. Specialized exercises, mobility drills, and other things that can help a student fix technique difficulties on the fly. In fact, I actually just put a video together for a friend today who was having an issue with his rhomboid, bothering him when he would do pressing exercises. And it's a sort of a thing that, again, maybe AI will somehow be able to whittle down and figure out. But I think for most people, it's like you need to have an understanding of the human experience to kind of narrow down what might be causing these sorts of things. But just to finish what I was saying here, psychological hangups about their beliefs and their abilities to achieve their goals. I mean, these are you're dealing with what humans have been called the rationalizing animal because we're not really rational, but we use rationality when we need to back up or justify something emotional, some sort of an emotional decision that we've made. But last but not least, I would say, of course, the all important coach's eye, which can tell when and if adjustments are needed to your program, to your technique, and anything else. And the list could go on, but I think you get the picture. Now, I want to give you a couple of real life, sort of eyebrow raising moments that I and others have had with AI related queries on training. So I asked ChatGPT a question some time back about training with the pistol squat. And one of the strong suggestions it made was to alternate foot positions to avoid overuse injuries. Well, I can assure you, if you try squatting with a different foot position, such that your knees don't track your toes, your next injury will not be from overuse. Another example is my friend and performing strongman Dave, the Iron Tamer Whitley, who's been on this show a couple of times, once asked an AI to create a kettlebell program, and one of its suggestions was to finish the workout with slow swings. Now, if you can figure out how to swing a kettlebell slowly, you let me know. All right. You've not just mastered the kettlebell at that point, but you've also probably conquered physics and proven that gravity is only a theory. So good luck following any of this advice. Now, some might say, yeah, but AI is getting better all the time. Eventually it might be able to do all that stuff. And you know what? Maybe it will. But know ye this. The LLMs, or large language models, like ChatGPT, are trained on the content that they glean from the internet, and what they create when given a prompt, even if it's accurate, is as devoid of personality and human connection as the Terminator would be. Now, not only that, but as time goes on and the internet gets filled with more and more bland, tasteless, personality-free filler content created by AI, these LLMs will continue to troll the internet, as they're doing now, and will begin using this AI-generated stuff to create more content. So before long, you'll have this information incest sort of thing going on, which is just going to lead to even further dumbed down, hyper-simplified, soulless, personality-free crap being thrown at you. You might as well just teach ChatGPT to play the banjo and live in the backwoods wilderness deliverance style. It's going to volunteer itself for that kind of inbreeding. So even if AI manages to overcome all of this, it will still lack one of the most important elements of all, and this is something I've mentioned a couple times now, but it's the human connection, or at least I've alluded to it a couple of times. So it's well known in the sales world that people buy you as a salesman or saleswoman before they buy what you're actually selling. So similarly, people are handing their trainers and coaches the responsibility not just for the results, but for their health, safety, and psychological sense of security. So no matter how good a coach is or how great the results he or she can produce for them, without a sense of knowing, liking, and trusting them, and really feeling connected to them, many people simply go elsewhere. And I'll make a side note, that might even mean going to a coach who's less effective. People really want the human connection. So why else do you think there are so many top-notch coaches struggling to make ends meet, while there are tons of celebrity trainers who should, by all rights, be wearing dunce hats and having rotten produce thrown at them in the middle of the town square, but instead are raking in huge money with tons of very happy followers? And again, even if they're not producing the best results, the fact is simple. They know how to connect with their followers. So high quality coaching plus personal connection would make you an AI-proof personal trainer. And I'll just take one step back to take one leap forward. This, in my opinion, the same is true for science-based trend in strength coaching. So yeah, science is very important and it's very illuminating. And I definitely do think that it's made the strength world a lot stronger and has given us a better insight into how things work. But experience still leads the way. And legends who laid the foundation of what we know today as strength training, men like George Hackenschmidt, Arthur Saxon, Eugene Sandow, Paul Anderson. Yeah, I'll give you an example of Paul Anderson. He way back in I want to say the 50s and thereabouts, was doing crazy stuff like he would put 1,000 pounds on a barbell or just some absurd amount that he couldn't yet fully squat. And then he would do a really small range of motion, like maybe an inch. And he would do a couple sets of 20 or 25 like that. And then when he could do that somewhat comfortably, he would increase the depth just a little bit. And then he would repeat. And, maybe he would have to use fewer reps or whatever the case may be. But he would do this until he could do a full squat with this weight. And at the time, the sports science, back in the day, didn't think that was possible. They thought you could only really get strong in the range of motion that you're training in, and that there was no carryover into different angles. And he was able to figure this out long before. So again, experience beat the scientists by, in this case, I want to say maybe like 30 or so years. So this is very important to keep in mind. Now, these men had to try, fail, retry, and then eventually strike gold in figuring out the essential and immutable principles of strength training. So they didn't wait around for studies to confirm what they knew, and they didn't wait around for any permission to do the things that they had a hunch were going to work. This is how I approach writing my own courses, programs, challenges, guides, things like that. So I draw on not just what the best and brightest throughout the last several hundred years have done in their own training, but also my own experience training both myself and students from around the world over the last 15 years. And one of the things that I think has made it so helpful for a lot of people is the fact that I have this experience, both training myself as well as training a lot of other people, and that I focus on customization in whenever I put together a program, including programs that are meant for like, let's say mass consumption and not just the ones for my private students. I try to think ahead at what my audience most commonly deals with in terms of their own frustrations with strength and conditioning and things like that. And I try to address them in each and every course, program, challenge, and guide. And the net effect of doing this is that I've got a very successful string of people who've gone through my various different courses and so on and so forth, and have gotten some very good results. And I'm very proud of that. So all things considered, I do think that probably there's going to be a lot more AI in the strength and fitness world. I don't think that is necessarily going to take away the jobs of any personal trainers. I will say that personal trainers who are simply regurgitating what they've heard and they're not trying to actively, number one, niche down to a group of people that they're uniquely capable of helping. And number two, trying to customize their approach, even their approaches that are meant for multiple people, meaning, one-on-one stuff is obviously going to have to be customized. But even the stuff that is meant for more, let's say, mass consumption, if they can put it together or present it in a way that is more customized to the audience, again, I think they're going to be perfectly fine when it comes to AI. And again, there's also this ticking time bomb of AI using AI to create responses, and the fact that these large language models still hallucinate, meaning they'll say things that are completely wrong and double down on them. And it's I read a statistic, I don't know how true this is, but I read a statistic that 27% of the time there's a hallucination of some sort in their responses. So you really have to be vigilant about checking. You wouldn't, if you knew that you were going to have a personal trainer who 27% of the time was going to tell you something that was wrong and it was just made up, you would not rely on him or her at all. So I think that, there's a lot of opportunity with AI. I think that there's a lot of opportunity for personal trainers. And I think one of the big things is going to be more human, as Perry Marshall has said. He's an expert in a great number of things, but he had a really great conference on AI that I went to some time back. And that was the big takeaway, was to focus on being more human. And AI is never going to be able to do that, which is one of the reasons I'm not worried. Be human, be interested in all sorts of other different things, and don't worry, I don't think we got a Terminator sort of situation on our hands. But if we do, we've got bigger problems, and personal training's going to be the last of your worries. So there you have it. There you be. I hope you've enjoyed this program. And if you have, I encourage you to like, subscribe, share with all of your best friends or worst enemies, honestly. Maybe you like a challenge and you want to see them get a little bit better so that you can challenge yourself to continue to rise above. Whatever the case may be, thank you for tuning in. Stay tuned for the next episode. And as always, have fun and happy training.